Now then crew, welcome back to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel, and this video is about window regulators, or in fact, more specifically, the electric motors. Most cars nowadays don't have the little windy up windows anymore. We all use electric motors to wind the windows up and back down again. And recently, whilst I was down in the South Island, I replaced a window motor regulator from a Mazda CX-7, I think it was. And we weren't too sure what the problem was. So this video is the follow-up that I promised you to find out why this failed. Because it may well be the reason why yours has failed. Ben also gave me another window regulator out of one of our Nissan Patrols that's failed. Don't know what the problem is. We're going to dig into that one as well, just to give you a bit more of a broad overview of the problems that can happen. Okay, well, let's get to it. Used.
You don't paint something without warning.
Honestly. Okay, so if you've watched the first video where I replaced this on the Mazda, you'll know the symptoms. So you pressed the window down and it sort of went down so far and it went click, 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 and won't go any further unless you give it a bit of a push and then it would carry on. So it sort of felt mechanical. You know, some kind of gearing that had failed. I don't think it was the actual regulator itself. We left that in situ. I've still got the original, the new replacement regulator here. No use to me, but we fitted the new motor. And inside here, you've got the motor system here. You've got a worm drive, which then powers through reduction the actual gear that keys into the actual window regulator mechanism. So I don't think it was the motor on this one. I think it was the actual gear mechanism, but we're going to dig in and just verify that. Now, these are not designed to come apart. They're a disposable item. They're actually pretty cheap, to be honest, for what they are. Obviously, they sell lots of them because they do fail. And the gear system tends to be pretty poor quality, i.e. made of plastic rather than metal. But we will find out. Okie dokie. Well, I haven't got a lot of time because I've got to catch a flight later on. But in the interest of science, we'll see if we can get the motor removed and strip this thing down. So a couple of little screws and we should hopefully be able to retract the motor and get it off the gear assembly. This was going to go in the bin anyway, so it's well worth taking a look and seeing what the problem was. The old Nissan Patrol one was probably produced. That's a bit of a weird screw angle, isn't it? Great design, lads. You could have put it just there. Maybe. Okay, right, almost there. Well done, Mazda. Okay, right, that's out. So can we now remove the motor? I noticed that the plug here has got 6 wires down there, look, 6 pins, so it's not just a positive negative. Now, do we need to split this first? I think we might need to do, actually. I think that's keyed in on the plastic. So once this cover's taken off, then maybe we can then get that motor out, because I don't think it's going to come out now. Or can we just leave that out? Maybe a bigger screwdriver might work. Yes, there we go. Okay, so here we have, look, a metal worm drive. Excellent, well done, Mazda. Little O-ring to keep the moisture out. And by the looks of it, the motor was held in. Was it glued in or was it just a pin? It does look like it was glued in, to be honest. We definitely had to break something. Yes, we've broken off a little clip just in there, look. So anyway, that's off, and we know that the motor worked. There's nothing wrong with that. We'll leave that alone. What I'm interested in is this bit. And just looking at the way it's formed, that's interesting. There's a couple of little wires sticking out the side here. Okay, any wires go into the plug. No, there's no wires coming out of there, so that's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Okay, so we now need to separate this top cover. You can see around there, look, there's the seam, comes down here. It looks like it steps down and goes to here and comes across. So can that just be levered up, or is it all glued together? This is where Andy loses blood, probably. Just need to get in there. I might need to put it in the vise. Oh, there we go, look. Nice. Okay. This is good. I like this. Alrighty. One more on this side. Okay. Could be a short video. Right, that hopefully will come off there now. It does. Okay, so we've got the worm drive off the motor, which engages into this bottom gear down here. So we'll spin that around, see if any of those teeth have gone missing. And they all look pretty good. That then drives this slightly smaller but wider gear, because obviously there's a bit more torque going on, and all of those teeth look to be good as well. So we then go across to this half, and very clearly we can see here, look, that some of the teeth on this driven gear, we'd call that, that's the drive gear, and this is the driven gear, they've broken. So every so often when that makes a full rotation, I don't think they'll come out of there. Yes, they will. There we are, look. So we'll stick him in there. Every time that goes round, I know we've lost the spindle. Can we have a spindle? Yes, we can. Do that. We'll stick the spindle in as well. That'll locate it. So every time that comes around, then it would start to slip. So at that point there, this would be turning. Click, 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 click. Click, click, click. You know, a bit of resistance, click, 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 not working at all. And then I moved the window manually a little bit, got it back into mesh, and off we go again. And that was the fault. And it's what I suspected to be the fault, but I wasn't entirely sure until, you know, just now we've pulled it apart. So, nylon gears, obviously very cheap to produce, and that's no doubt why Mazda decided to do it. There's also what looks like, cush drive system. How cool! It's a bit like an old motorcycle rear sprocket, isn't it? Where it goes into the hub. Little cush drives. How cool is that? Very smart. Good job, Mazda. Yes, so this gear here drives the cush drive. And then that, then in turn, keys into the other side of this output sprocket. So that drops on there like that. And drops back into there. Dum dum dum. There we are, look. And then it drives the window regulator mechanism itself. So there's a little bit of give in there. Now that's not to help stop squashy fingers and things. That's maybe just to, you know, take away or act a bit like a damper and so on. But it wouldn't stop you squashing your fingers, because you're only going to get a very tiny amount of movement and then it's going to be locked. But even so, cush drive system, pretty cool to see on there. Very, very good, Mazda. I like that. Will that come out of there? It will, yes. Now, from what I understand, even though these are relatively cheap to buy as a complete unit with the motor and everything, you can actually buy a reconditioning kit from Mazda where you just get new gears. So you could actually fix this super cheap. Not that we're going to bother, because I don't have a Mazda, but there you go. That's that one. Very happy to pull that apart. So I'll sweep that to one side, and we'll take a quick look at the Nissan one. Okay, so the Mazda one, yeah, as I expected, a broken nylon gear. It just stripped the teeth down, and that's probably down to a bit of wear. You know, the teeth get, you know, narrower and narrower on the peaks, and eventually they're too thin and they just break off. Understood. Fair dues, Mazda. It lasted a fair few years, and it's a cheap component. A cheap car, to be fair. However, this one is made by Nissan. Well, it's in a Nissan vehicle, made by a company called Jidico in Japan. So a good quality, well-manufactured piece of kit. This did work for for a long, long time until it didn't. So let's do another autopsy. Let's pull it apart and see why this one doesn't work. Okay, now on the Mazda it had 6 wires. This one only has what appears to be 2 wires. So we could put power on that first of all and see if that motor's actually going to work. Let me get that set up. That's one. No idea on the polarity, but hey, don't forget these things go up and down. So the switch on the vehicle will be responsible for changing the polarity to give us up and down. Right, I'm going to put the final one on the battery now. I'll just bring that across here so you can see the battery. There we go. And the other one. Here we go. Ready? Oh, there is a noise. Now, is this one 24 volt? Some of the stickers gone. I don't know. Let me rig up a second battery and give it 24 volts. Okay, 2 12-volt batteries wired in series. So when I connect that to there, we should get 24 volts. Oh, there you go, look. Nice. Has it got any torque? Oh, it has. Well, Ben tells me that this motor doesn't work. Well, the whole, you know, the complete assembly didn't work. Well, it's sounding pretty rough. Okay, well, the motor does work, but we're going to pull it apart anyway. Right, so let's get rid of all the little wires. Get rid of the batteries. So this is clearly off a Nissan Patrol that I purchased recently from the South Island, which is a 24 volt Nissan Patrol. Very, very cool. So we're going to take the motor off first. That was loose. There we go, that's that one. Not entirely sure what this is, to be honest. Just see if we can bend these little tabs back and we'll have a look. Okay, get rid of that one. I love taking things apart. Not so keen on putting things back together again, and this one won't go back together. But I do like taking stuff apart to work out what's going on. And it really helps with diagnostics when you understand how, you know, what things do and how they work. Ooh, look at that. What the hell? How bizarre. Little metal discs. And it had like a little wafy washer in it. I have no idea what the purpose of that is. No idea at all. However, the current flow from these two terminals had to join these two together. So why would you have these? That feels like an insulator. It's light. Is it magnetic? Let me find out. Okay, here we have magnet. It is not magnetic. Does it conduct electricity? Let's find out. Okay, Mr. Meter. And we will set into beepy beep beep. Where's the beepy beep beep? There he is. Beepy beep, thank you. Okay, let's test the beep. Beep beep works. Let's get our little plates. There's clearly some contacting going on. It does. Okay, so what's the resistance? 200 ohms. 0.9, 0.8 of an ohm. Okay, interesting. Don't know what it does. I'm sure somebody in the comments will be able to advise as to what's going on. These just feel like standard, it's just metal plates. And they're all stacked together inside this, all squashed together. And there was a wavy washer to hold everything together, so maybe that just acts as a resistor to limit the current flow. Sort of something like that, I suppose it would have been. But like I said, you can rewind the video and take a look. Very strange. Need to work out what that is. Okay, we've got one more screw and then we should be able to remove the motor. It's weird why it's got a little nut on the end of it. There we go. It's almost like somebody's stripped the threads, or maybe it has to be limited on depth. I don't know. Okay, so now we can remove the motor casing, this metal piece here, and in there with the field magnets, the fixed magnets. There we go. And you can see down there, look, the two, hang on, can we put the light on for you? Oh, we can, look at that. You can see the two fixed magnets, one either side, and they look to be intact. Don't see any problems at all with those. Sometimes the glue can break off that holds the magnet to the side of the casing, and it starts to rattle around, and that can be a problem with the motors. Especially the small quad bike starter motors can fail like that, and motorcycle ones. And here we have the brushes. You can see where the two wires come in, and we've got a brush on this side. Obviously the armature's moved slightly. One brush there on that side, which doesn't look particularly healthy. It's a bit bent. And one brush on this side, which is actually twizzled round by 90 degrees. So hopefully we can pull that out of there. We can. Oh yes, look. So again, a metal worm drive as part of the armature. Very good, very durable. And brushes. Well, that brush feels pretty floppy. That one's a lot more stiff. This one feels like it's failed down here. It feels quite... yeah, it's lost a lot of its spring pressure, so it's not going to be pushing against the commutator, which is this section here, very well. You can see the little grey band where they've been making contact. It looks pretty well cleaned up. I wonder if Ben's been in there to give it a clean up, try and fix it. I don't know, I'll have to ask him. Any signs of any burning on the armature? No, it all looks pretty good. I mean, it was rotating just fine. It didn't rotate, and then stop and then rotate and stop. Oh, that incidentally is for balance. They grind bits away to make sure that this is balanced so it doesn't create vibration. So again, quality. Well done, Nissan. And they've put a little ball bearing in the end to act against the thrust that's generated by the worm drive. Another one there, look. Because obviously it creates thrust in either direction, depending whether the window's going up or down. Because obviously the motor rotates one way for up and one way for down. No idea which, to be honest. I could work it out. Okay, so we're going to need to pull those wires through. There we go, and we can snip those off. Okay, I know, sacrilege, but here we can. All right, so I think one of the problems we've got here is that doesn't look factory. I think maybe Ben's been in there and done something. And you can see that this brush has either rotated. It doesn't actually look the same, does it? I wonder if Ben's tried to put a new brush in it. Because that brush there looks to be quite different to this brush. And this brush, oh, has that been catching? Maybe. Right, yes, I think it has. So there's a little screw here. Or has Ben just cut that off? Yes, that's Ben. Okay, so Ben has installed a new brush. And this is a new bolt. Because Nissan wouldn't use a little cap head in there. And you can see just under there, it's shiny where he's cut the bolt down. That's quite recent by the looks of it. So that is not the Nissan brush. And this one on this side is the Nissan brush. And this one is quite flimsy on the spring that holds the brush, whereas this one's a lot stronger. And it looks also like he's repaired this. Maybe he's replaced the brush as well, I don't know. But until I see another one, actually, I don't know. He's done something in there, because they're both different and they should both be the same. Anyway, I ramble on. Okay, so we can pull those wires out of there now and get rid of the wiring. Very interesting that we found a resistor in circuit. I'm still pondering over that. So all we've got left now is a mechanical device. Now, can it be stripped? Yes, it can. So we've got here a circlip. So I'll get some circlip pliers, we'll ping that off, and then we should be able to pull this out and inspect the gear. Now, incidentally, on the Mazda one, we found a cush drive system, and it looks here like Nissan's done the same thing, where this outer gear here, the large one, is driven by the worm. If I stick that back in there again, you can see as I rotate the armature, that will rotate in either direction. And then that transmits drive through this rubber to the inner gear here, which is what keys into the window regulator mechanism. So again, this has got a cush drive. It's a lot more rugged, and I don't think we can separate it. We'll have a look a bit later on. But let's get that circlip out of the way. Trying to keep it on camera for you. Way! Okay, that's gone. And we should be able to push that through now and remove the gear. There we go. Okay, so we've got a little spring washer in there, and this is obviously a bush that runs in the casting, just in there to give it support. There's no seal. I mean, there shouldn't need to be a seal because it's inside the door, you know, unless you're going through monster deep rivers. So that rubber, well, there's another seal. Oh, we've got another circlip. It's going to get really greasy now. Can we get that one out? Yes, didn't fire across the workshop. So what will come out with that circlip gone? Nothing. That's interesting. There is a secondary spline. We've got a spline this side and a spline that side. So, bear with me. That was in there like that. So the drive off that large gear, off the worm drive, so worm drive in there, we'll leave him in there, look. That drives that large one. These four little prongs, they transmit the drive into here. Ah, yes, and then the drive is transmitted. These splines here are only they're the nylon, so that's how the nylon locks into the inside part of that gear, and then the drive to the window regulator is actually, I was wrong. The window regulator is driven by this piece here, look, these splines. So are they in good nick? They don't look too bad. But I've no idea what that circlip was doing, because I don't think you can push that out. It'll be bonded to that, so why have a circlip if nothing else but to maybe hold that away? I don't know why there was a second circlip at this point in time, and I don't think I can get that out of there. Oh, I can. There we go, look. Okay, brilliant. So you can see now the drive is transmitted to these external splines, and then to these internal splines, and then out to the window regulator. Pretty cool. Okay, so we've got the damper as a separate part. Not that I think it would ever break, but separate part. Had a circlip on it. Don't really know why it has a circlip. I don't think it would need a circlip there. Probably more like a spacer. We've got that piece there. I wonder if you can replace that separately, because those inner splines are quite small, and I expect those would tear out after a while, after a lot of use. Okay, and then all that's left now is this gear. So we'll remove the worm drive. That should come out of there, he says. It should. It should definitely come out of there. Let's give it a tab on the bench. There we go. Okay, lots of grease. So that sits on there as a bush, to locate it, to keep it, you know, rotating on a central axis. And then we've got the teeth around the outside, look. And this is where the Mazda failed, don't forget. The Mazda failed on these teeth, essentially, the equivalent of on there. This is narrower, it's not quite so wide, so these teeth are not potentially as strong unless the material's a stronger material. But all of those teeth look to be absolutely fine. I can't see any problems with them at all. And as regards wear, if you look at the distance or the width of the tooth across here, there's still a very big flat. And as this wears, that flat will diminish and the valley will increase, you know, as the tooth wears down. On the Mazda, yeah, those teeth are a lot thinner. You can see, I've put it in my hand there, look. You can see the difference. So the bigger, the deeper teeth, but they go to more of a point. Interesting. Okay, well, we've learned something today about, what's that? Oh, a bit of plastic. Yeah, cool. So you can see how that keys into there, look, on those 4 little prongs to engage the damper, and then the drive goes from there to your regulator. Very simple, extremely well made, and far better made than the Mazda one, because the Mazda one, don't forget, was just a plastic body. This is a cast aluminum, or aluminium if you're English, casing. So a bit more work gone into these. What would that be on the end? It's got a screw thread on it. Let's have a look. There we go. So what does that do? Or is that to, that could be to give it a steel point. Yes, there we are, look. It's a steel surface on there, on the end of the screw, for that ball bearing to run against, for the thrust, rather than running it against aluminium, which it would obviously, eventually it would bore its way through. Very clever, Nissan. I like that. That's a smart idea. Very smart. So, what was the problem with this one? Well, the only issue that I could find was with the brushes. And by the looks of it, Ben's already been in there trying to fix it. There's some pretty dubious soldering going on here, Ben. I think you've done a good job, but it's not original. And one of the brushes, clearly, which is probably this one, isn't original also. It's a funny shape. Looks like he's trying to file it down to make it fit. I mean, a very good attempt at the repair, but clearly he's found that the motor is probably underpowered, and that's why he's decided to replace it, put another one in, which I don't know where he got it from. Hopefully he's not stolen it off my other Patrol. Who knows? So, super quick video, quick look at window regulator motors and the worm drive systems, and, you know, 2 reasons for failure. One being a broken gear, nylon gear. Some of the teeth have fallen off. Click, click, click. There's your problem. The other one was down on power. And the reason why it was down on power was because of poor brush contact to the commutator on the armature. Therefore, point of resistance, can't get enough current flow, and of course it doesn't have enough grunt to put the window up and down quickly enough. It did work, but not very well. Good effort, Ben, I must admit. Great effort to try and get that one fixed. Ultimately, just didn't work well enough, and he just fitted a new one. I've learned something today about, or at least posed the question as to what is this? Why is there a resistor in that circuit? And why do it like that? It seems to be a very bizarre way of introducing a resistor into a 24-volt circuit. I don't know. I need to dwell on that while I'm on the plane flying to Sydney, first thing in the morning. Okay, crew, well, hopefully you found this video helpful. More of just a autopsy kind of video, but it's good to see what's inside these and why they can fail. If you found it interesting, why not click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, and YouTube will send you a notification as and when I upload new videos. You'll also find me on Facebook and Instagram. And you know, you can also email me at andymechanic@live.co.uk. Now, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that through Patreon and become a patron. and you can make a donation through that platform. Otherwise, you can send some hard cash through PayPal. Use the same email address, andymechanic@live.co.uk, but please don't send it as a donation through PayPal. They won't accept it. I'm not a registered charity. Just send it as a payment, and a few dollars, whatever it is, it really helps to keep the old workshop going. And those that already have, thank you very much. Those that are about to do that, really appreciate it. Okay, crew, I've got to get packed up, pack the workshop up, pack up my ute, and then get up to Auckland. Yes, I'm going to Sydney. Okay, chaps, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Over and out.
And we get the flip up again.
Oh!
Really.